AA Running, and today Alex is going to show you how he broke 79 minutes in his first half marathon.
In today's video, I'll be talking about how I broke 79 minutes in my first ever half marathon. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get some tips for your own half marathon training. All right, let's begin. So the very first thing I did in designing this training program was I chose the volume of running I would be doing, so my max mileage, and also I chose a week structure. So for this plan, I decided to max out at 55 miles per week. So this was a pretty high mileage for me at the time, but something that I knew would be very, very manageable. Since I've been over 100 miles a week previously, 55 miles per week is a manageable volume for me, and one that would allow me to get the types of workouts I needed for a half marathon. The next thing I decided to do with my training is I decided to use a 9-day cycle. So instead of having 2 workouts and a long run every week, I decided to have 2 workouts and a long run every 9 days. So this gives me 2 extra days of recovery in between workouts and just makes it easier to get quality workouts in and recover. Now, the only downside is that means that I had an occasional long run on a weekday, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. But for me, with my life schedule at the time, this was 2017, the summer of 2017, that was just fine. I could do a long run on the occasional Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. All right, let's get into what types of workouts I recommend you use when you're training for a half marathon. All right, so the first type of workout you want to use for the half marathon are just easy long runs. Because the race is so long, the half marathon race is 13.1 miles. You're out there for hours, right? 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, depending on your ability level. You want to get used to being on your feet, moving for that long. So a goal for me in this training plan was to build up to a long run of 2 hours, which turned out to be about 16 miles. All right, the next type of workout is a marathon pace tempo. And so this was a sustained tempo run. I did these, most of mine were 8 miles long at slower than half marathon pace, but a steady, hard, sustained effort. Then I incorporated some threshold pace tempos, which are basically tempo runs, 20 minutes to maybe up to 30-35 minutes long at your 1 hour race pace. So this, for me, threshold pace is a little bit faster than half marathon pace, but I was, okay running these workouts at half marathon pace. And then lastly, it's important to do some workouts that are faster than your goal half marathon pace, so that half marathon pace feels a little bit easier. For me, in this training plan, I decided to do that in the form of what's called critical velocity intervals. So critical velocity is your race pace for 30 minutes. I basically approximated that, called it my 10K pace. All right, so I did intervals at critical velocity. And then lastly, I do recommend that you include some shorter distance time trials or races as a tune-up for the half marathon, just so you can practice some race day habits and get a good handle on what your fitness is and your progression. All right, let's look at the calendar. So the first 4 weeks of this training cycle, I started training 16 weeks before my goal half marathon race. So the first 4 weeks is like the first quarter of the half marathon plan training cycle. And I started off these 4 weeks, the main focus was just building up my mileage to that 55 miles per week level, and doing this mainly through easy pace running. And so you can see I only had 3 quality days in these first 4 weeks. The first one was a 5K race where I just wanted to get a general baseline. I just wanted to know what kind of fitness I had starting off. So I could then know what kind of paces to run in the workouts. And so I ran that race 17:31, about 5:40 per mile, faster than my goal half marathon pace. So that was a really good sign from week 1. I was really happy with that. And then I started building my long run. I started off at 12 miles, and again, remember, I wanted to build up towards 16 miles throughout the plan. But I started off at 12 miles in week 3. And then week 4 had my first marathon pace tempo. This was 8 miles at, for me, it was a 6:25 per mile pace. I can't stress this enough. The marathon pace tempos was such an important type of workout for my half marathon fitness. It really got me into great shape for the half marathon. I really strongly recommend you include these marathon pace tempo runs in your half marathon training. Figure out what your half marathon goal pace should be, and then add about 30 seconds a mile to that, so 30 seconds per mile slower. That's roughly what your marathon pace should be. It can vary, based on individuals. Another way to find your pace is to take your 3K or 5K pace and add a minute per mile. So find that marathon pace and do some sustained hard runs of 45 minutes to an hour, up to an hour. So for me, 8 miles, 6:25 per mile took me about 50 minutes. All right, let's look at the progression from there. So I kept on including the marathon pace tempo most of these weeks. I built my long run up to 15 miles by week 7, and you can see I had another 5K time trial. So I spaced these out by 5 weeks, so week 1 and week 6. And the reason why I did a time trial in week 6, you might think it might be a little bit early, is I just felt after that second marathon pace tempo, on the Friday of week 5, I just felt like I was in a lot better shape than that 17:30, and it turned out to be right. My intuition was right. I was running a lot of my easy runs. My easy runs started to get faster. I just felt like I was in great shape. So I wanted to test myself out. I ran a 5K, 16:57, and that was just perfect. That gave me a lot of confidence for the half marathon. Being able to do a 5K in about 5:27 per mile. That would allow me to hopefully be able to run my goal of the 13.1 miles in under 6 minutes per mile. And so you can see after that 5K, I started to run a little bit faster on my marathon pace tempos, dropping down to 6:17 per mile. All right, and so weeks 9 through 12, remember this is the third quarter of the plan, so there's 16 weeks total, and your third quarter of your training plan should be your hardest weeks. And so these were the weeks where I wanted to really hit the threshold tempos, so running at goal half marathon pace, and I wanted to start running some critical velocity workouts, so running faster than goal pace. Now, I was also doing some 16-mile long runs here. So I thought this would be my heaviest weeks of training. Now, if you look at my weekly mileage totals, it turns out that, I had a bit of a setback in week 9 and week 10. So you can see I ran quite a bit fewer miles than the 55 miles I was shooting for. And that was just because I got sick, I had a cold. The latter part of week 9 and the beginning of week 10, I basically didn't run at all for 5 or 6 days, almost a week. And that's something that you shouldn't be afraid to do. If you get sick, take a week off. Don't take as long as it recover. Let your body regain its health. And this was pre-COVID. This was 3 years before COVID. So this advice goes for even back then. Like if you're feeling sick, don't run. Just don't run. Because if you look at what happened after I took that week off, you look at my workouts after that in the following weeks, and they were right where they were before. My fitness was not hurt. You know, I had the same fitness. You don't really lose much fitness in only 1 week. All right, so by week 12, I was already doing up to 4 miles at goal pace. I was really comfortable with the 8-mile runs at about 6:20 per mile, and I was already doing some workouts. I did one workout, 7 by 800 at about 5:30 pace. So I was really on my way here. All right, let's look at how did I finish up the training cycle. So what did I do in the last 4 weeks leading up to my half marathon race? Well, you can see a little bit of everything here. So I had a marathon pace tempo in week 13. So I wanted to touch on that still, like just maintaining that marathon pace fitness. And then I had some pretty difficult threshold tempos. So I ran a 5-mile threshold tempo in week 13. And then my hardest workout of the training cycle was in week 15. And, you know, just like in my 10K training video that you might have seen, my hardest workout of the training cycle goes 10 days before the goal race. You don't want to have your hardest workout of the cycle, or any really hard workouts, you know, closer to your race than that, because it takes 1 to 2 weeks for your body to recover and adapt and benefit from a workout. So the workouts that you do, you know, 7 days or less before your race, you're not getting the full benefit of those workouts. So my last chance to get a really big benefit from any one workout would have been, you know, that week 15, about 10 days out. And so that's where I put this threshold tempo. I did 4 times 2 miles. I had an 800-meter jog recovery in between, and I just wanted to see what I could do. So I didn't really have that much of a pace in mind. I just wanted to see what I can do for that workout, 4 times 2 miles. And that, I figured that would give me a pretty good idea of what my half marathon pace should be, right? So I ended up averaging 11:50, which is 5:55 pace, and then consequently, when it came to run my half marathon, I was really confident in being able to hold 5:55. So that's the pace that I kind of tried to hone in on in the beginning of that race. All right. So let's talk about the race. So the half marathon that I trained for with this training plan was the San Francisco Half Marathon in July. So July 23rd, 2017. And my first ever half marathon on the road. I ran one half marathon many years ago, 2012, on a trail. So that was a trail half marathon. But this is my first half marathon on the road. I ran 1:18:14, so 78 minutes and 14 seconds officially. That was my official finish. And you can see, based on my GPS data, my GPS picked up 13.5 miles. So what does that mean? The course, the way that people measure road race courses is they try to measure the shortest path someone might follow on that course. So if there are any turns on that course, they measure the tangents, the shortest path possible. So if you're out there running and you don't try to run the tangents on every turn, you're not going to end up running the shortest distance. You're going to end up running extra distance. So you can see I did a really bad job of running tangents here. So I ended up running extra distance, and you can see that based on my pace, 5:48 per mile, which was, a really amazing pace for me on that day. I probably was in shape to run 1:16, 2 minutes faster. So that's really important. It's really important to if you're able to familiarize yourself with the course ahead of time, take a look at the course, take a look at the map, take a look at where the turns are, and even go there in person and try to picture where you're going to run, because it's important to try to run the shortest distance possible. I mean, that's the whole point of a race, right? You're trying to, that way you're going to maximize your performance. All right, so enough about that, but let's look at some final takeaways from this training plan and things that you can use for your own half marathon, regardless of your ability level. All right, so first tip number one is definitely consider using an extended training week. You don't have to do a long run and a tempo run and an interval workout every 7 days, right? The 7-day week is totally arbitrary. It works well for, you know, daily life and like jobs and school and that kind of stuff. But in terms of like your running program and training for races, it doesn't matter. Your body doesn't know that. All your body knows is it gets stressed in your workouts, and then it needs to recover in between the workouts. So consider doing like a 9-day cycle, or even a 10-day cycle, or even up to a 14-day cycle. Just give yourself some extra days of rest in between your workouts. The next tip number two, the next tip is you really need to emphasize the long, easy runs and the marathon pace tempos, especially early in the training block. The 8-mile marathon pace tempos I was doing, I have no doubt that they were the most important part of this training plan. There's no doubt. I was able to even run a Sub-79 5K without any other workouts, just with the 8-mile marathon pace tempos. And for me, that's phenomenal. My PR in the 5K is a little bit faster, 16:17, but I haven't broken 17 that many times in my life. It's a pretty rare occurrence. And so to break 17 in the 5K, using only marathon pace tempos, I mean, that just shows you how important your aerobic fitness is, your cardiovascular fitness, and just doing long, steady, sustained efforts. All right, and tip number three, do some what I call under distance work. So basically all that means is you gotta do some running faster than goal half marathon pace. You know, for me, that those 5K races I did were actually, you know, those were training runs too. Like, I benefited from doing those 5Ks because it made half marathon pace feel more manageable. You know, the critical velocity workouts, running at 10K pace, that was really important. The 800s I did, 1000s, 1200s. And then, you know, lastly, you might want to even consider adding some even shorter and quicker stuff that I didn't even include, right? I didn't do any faster stuff, like 200s at mile pace. You know, you don't want to do that every week. You're not training for the mile or the 5K, but it's a good idea to sprinkle a little bit of that stuff in as well. All right, that's it for the training talk. I really hope you enjoy it. Comment down below if you have any questions about half marathon training, any questions about any workouts you saw in this training calendar I've presented, and if you have any questions about your own half marathon training plans. And lastly, comment down below if you have any other training plans you would like us to present. You know, we have the 10K training plan for sub 36 minutes. Now we've got this half marathon training plan. So if you want to see more training plans, let us know. And lastly, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future videos. And have a great day.
Comment down below if you want to see any other training plans. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
And run energized.